every time you mention it, someone will reinstall it. Deus Ex puts you in the role of J.C. Denton, an agent for the United Nations Anti-Terrorist Coalition, or Unatco. From here, you make your way through a number of missions where you slowly but surely start to see that Unatco may not be as good as you originally thought. This is one of the things people love about this game. It's never actually said if you're the good guy or not, which is fantastic. Very few games have actually done that, and perhaps the second most common is the game's heavy emphasis on player choice. And I don't mean the BS Telltale style, I mean serious choices that affect how the game plays out, or at least to a certain degree. The game does have a set plot, and no matter how you play it, you'll end up at the same spot. But what happens along the way does change a bit. For instance, right at the start of the game, you have the choice to kill the leader of the terrorists, or to actually listen to him. The game's also fully willing to give you choices that doesn't actually make obvious. For instance, when you're told to leave your brother, you're also allowed to stay and fight, although it is kind of difficult.
Don't be a fool, run!
Unfortunately, I don't know why, but I never found the story of Deus Ex super engaging. It's competently written, I'll give it that, but it didn't pull me in the same way that even Human Revolution did. The game's characters are all unique, but are unfortunately fairly unmemorable. There are some memorable characters like Daedalus, Icarus, Walton Simons, and Tracer Tong, and of course everyone's favourite and the most memorable character, Shannon. Most others, however, while good, aren't anything too special, which is a shame, because you can interact with almost every character you see in the game. On the plus side, this interaction is great because it helps fill out the lore of the game and helps you make your way through missions. Deus Ex is a fairly competent first-person shooter, but you don't have to play it as one. If you wish, you can play as a stealth game a la Metal Gear, or you can play melee with batons, crowbars, or even a glowing laser sword. And they all feel good to play. As I mentioned in the story section, Deus Ex gives you options about how to tackle the story, but it also gives you options as how to play it. Something that's very obvious in the first level. Right off the bat, you're asked if you want a small gun, explosive projectile, or tranq darts. Unfortunately, as I alluded to earlier, Revision gives us a few problems. The AI is changed from the original, making the game much harder overall. And this isn't just me saying it as someone who's not great at first-person shooters, other people agree. Guards can hear you and see you from distances far greater than the original game, and while I'd be fine with that in something newer like Human Revolution, I'm not fine with it here. Deus Ex's mediocre AI is a product of its time, and it works with the gameplay. Revision's doesn't. In the words of Warren Spector,
a lot of people think that the purpose of AI is to beat the player, but what you want is AI that leaves the player sweating with one hit point.
Your inventory is still the same, featuring the infamous inventory Tetris. Say you want to pick up the Dragon Tooth sword, and you have 4 slots open in your inventory. Well, if you don't have them in the right spots, you can't pick it up. You have to order it manually. Additionally, everything you pick up will take up space inside the inventory, even if they can be added into something else, such as with gun mods. Deus Ex has a very dated look. Even for 2000, it's not very good looking. Revision helps a little bit, but still not as good as even Invisible War. Environments look nice, with pretty good, if low-res, textures, but the worst of the worst is the character models. Almost all of them look very poor. Some, like the MJ-12 Commandos, look kind of cool with a strange, low-poly bird look. Others, like Gunther, look really bad. This isn't a problem with Revision, however, as Deus Ex used the original Unreal Engine, leading to lackluster graphics even when compared to other games at the time. And I suppose I should bring up the introductory cutscene. Revision changes a major part to it. They managed to completely change the meaning, which is a shame. The music of Deus Ex is fantastic. The music of Revision, however, is hit or miss. Some of the music is based on the original game's music, for instance, Nanotech Gods, the new theme song, or The Coalition, the revision of the Unatco theme. Other songs, like Crumble to Dust, take on a more cinematic, orchestral sound, giving it a bit more of an eerie feeling. Works with the game, but doesn't quite fit the ambient, electronic feel of the rest of the music. Revision keeps the original game's voice acting, which is kind of a problem. If you didn't already know it, the original Deus Ex voice acting was mediocre at best, and sometimes kind of racist.
Mr. J.C. Denton, in the flesh.
This isn't the issue with Revision, however. Because Revision kept the voice acting of the original game, it refers to locations that have since changed. For instance, early on in the game, someone tells you how to find Smuggler. They mention he's in a location near the subway entrance. Except he isn't. He's now halfway across the map, hidden in a location that I only knew to look in after half an hour of searching, and then I only knew because I looked it up. On the other side, sound effects in the game are pretty good. They're high quality, they exist in 3D space, and they're just generally pretty nice. Initially, I found Deus Ex more or less couldn't work on my modern Windows 10 computer. It wouldn't be detected by my capture software, it'd crash, and when it did work, lines would be cut off. I switched over to Revision. Revision has DirectX mods installed right out the box, which is great, making it work much better. But it also brings numerous texture and graphical issues. Textures would flicker, not load, and it's very obvious. Alternatively, the game would just randomly go black, only fixing itself when I switched out of full screen or changed resolution. Of course, as always, your mileage may vary when it comes to performance. Deus Ex is not perfect. That said, Deus Ex may be so goddamned close to perfect that it should probably be the benchmark for action RPGs. The gameplay is amazing, the story exceeds most from the time, and the soundtrack is almost perfection. Frankly, the only real issues in my mind are graphics and voice acting, both of which could be worse. Revision gives it a few issues. The AI is made brutal, there's texture issues, and the soundtrack doesn't quite live up to the original. But yet, it's still pretty damned good. All in all, Deus Ex is a must play, and you don't have any excuse not to. It's $7 on Steam. Of course, this is the first of 3 games, so join us next month as we take on Invisible War.